So you've now watched every video in the series and you know more about defending yourself from the IRS than 95% of taxpayers. But knowledge without action is just information. In this final video, going over my book, The IRS Survival Guide, let's make sure you walk away with a clear plan. So I'm Andrew Bosserman. I'm an IRS defense attorney, CPA, and former IRS agent. This video goes over the conclusion of my book, The IRS Survival Guide. So let's recap the 5 fatal mistakes I talk about in my book and build your personal IRS defense blueprint. So in the book, I go through what I call the 5 fatal mistakes. So common mistakes that I see taxpayers making during IRS audits or other sorts of IRS disputes that I learned through my time as an IRS agent and now representing taxpayers on the other side. So the first mistake is failing to prepare. The time to prepare for an IRS audit is years before it ever happens. Through consistent bookkeeping, having organized records, and also self-auditing yourself to make sure you're keeping track of everything properly. Mistake number 2 is not knowing the law. So tax misconceptions oftentimes cost people more than audits themselves. You definitely need to know the rules or work with a qualified professional who does. Mistake number 3, underestimating your right to disagree. So the IRS can be wrong, and sometimes frequently. You have the right to push back both administratively, meaning within the IRS's system, and judicially, that's through the courts. Use it if you think the IRS is wrong, but you have to know how to navigate each one properly. Mistake number 4, and this is actually the mistake I think sets my book apart and actually probably my most favorite section. It is adopting an adversarial attitude. So cooperation, preparation, and credibility is what wins audits. Hostility is oftentimes what loses them. And this section goes into how to communicate with IRS agents, really more of the personal side. It doesn't get into tax law, but I think it's an often overlooked and undervalued strategy when dealing with the IRS. And finally, mistake number 5, going it alone. Taxpayers who hire professional representation get significantly better outcomes than those that don't. So know when to get help, the different types of professionals, and when you should hire them. So in terms of your IRS defense blueprint, here's a sample action plan you could start doing starting today. So this month, if you haven't done it before, pull your tax transcripts at irs.gov. Review and see what's going on and if you understand everything that's on there. Also, you want to review your bookkeeping system. Is it giving you a clear and accurate financial story? And finally, when you pull your tax transcripts, you can also confirm that all income and expenses reported on the IRS's system matches your records and tax returns. Sometime this quarter, I'd recommend you review your most recent tax returns against the potential red flags I discussed in the book. Ensure that you have documentation for your top 5 largest deductions on your tax return. And if you haven't already, take the steps to separate your business and personal finances completely. There's nothing worse when I was an IRS agent than seeing commingled business and personal expenses because it just makes everything more complicated and oftentimes leads to lots of issues. This year, definitely find and vet a tax professional you trust before you need them. Make sure you have an adequate record retention system for all that backup documentation you might need for an IRS audit. And also review your estimated tax payments. And oftentimes your accountant can help you with this if you're doing it yourself to avoid any sort of underpayment penalties. And you can also look at that in your IRS account, your estimated payments you've made. And finally, remember to respond to every IRS notice promptly and in writing if the notice requires a response. And also never ignore the IRS. Open your letters and timely responses always win. Always win because they're on time, they're complete. Ignoring the IRS only leads to further issues down the road. So I started this series with a story, and one of the stories in it was my first audit as an IRS agent, fresh out of college, sweating through my suit in a hair salon, watching a taxpayer pull a shoebox of receipts from under the table. That moment really crystallized something I've carried throughout my entire career. So the tax system has enormous power. The IRS has enormous resources, but they're not infallible, and you are not powerless. The business owners who come through audits in the best shape are not always the ones with the most money or the best accountants. They're the ones who prepared, who knew their rights, who treated the process professionally, and also who asked for help at the right moment. So that's really what the IRS Survival Guide is about and what this whole series has been about. Preparation, knowing your rights, treating IRS agents professionally, and asking for help at the right moment. So finally, remember that the IRS Survival Guide is available at a free PDF at theirssurvivalguide.com. So if you haven't yet, go there now, download your copy, and share this series with another business owner you know who deserves to be protected and prepared from the IRS. Again, theirssurvivalguide.com. So thanks so much for watching. Now go take action and prepare before the IRS comes knocking at your door. Again, if this series helped you, please subscribe and share it with someone who needs it. And I will see you in the next video.